I'm here to rip into All Elite Wrestling's 5th anniversary show. If you caught my video yesterday, you know I'm not pulling punches. AEW really needs to quit this back-to-back special show nonsense. Grand Slam last week, the anniversary show this week, next week we've got Title Tuesday, and 10 days from now it's Wrestle Dream. It's like they're trying to cram a whole season into a single month. And guess what? It's a recipe for disaster. When you stack these events on top of each other, you get diminishing returns. You can't make every show feel important when you're racing the clock. The philosophy in wrestling has always been about matches mattering more than just flashy storylines, and right now, they're fumbling that ball. The matches? Sure, they were good, but many of the wrestlers moved like they were stuck in molasses. It felt like they were going from spot to spot, dragging their feet and killing time instead of delivering the adrenaline rush fans crave. And then, there were the split-screen commercial breaks that felt like they were playing a game of how many ads can we cram in here. It was distracting as hell. Ospreay and Ricochet did their best during the breaks, but during the Bryan Danielson and Okada match, those epic moves were lost in the shuffle. I found myself nodding off, pulled out of the moment by the sheer barrage of commercials. And what's the deal with the anniversary aspect? There was no real celebration or reflection on what this milestone meant for AEW. Tony Khan casually dropped the news about the new TV rights deal, but if you wanted the details, you had to hunt them down online instead of getting the scoop during the show. That's a huge misstep. Fans shouldn't have to dig for context or backstories. This isn't a scavenger hunt. It's wrestling. Now heading into Title Tuesday, they really dropped the ball on hyping it up. They didn't even bother to inform fans about the special start time, Tuesday at 9 p.m. instead of the usual Wednesday at 8 p.m. And not a single title match announced for a show called Title Tuesday. That's just plain stupid. Sure, they made some bold experimental choices, and I appreciate that. But then there were some downright dumb choices that left me scratching my head. As for the TV rights deal, here's the scoop. Warner Bros. Discovery is keeping AEW's flagship shows, Dynamite and Collision, on their networks, with a twist. Starting January 2025, they'll simulcast on Max for the first time. They're also doling out pay-per-view events at discounted rates for subscribers, which is a win for fans. This new deal expands their partnership, promising broader access to AEW programming across various platforms. The hope is to create fresh experiences for fans while keeping the essence of what AEW is all about. Tony Khan called it an incredible partnership, emphasizing the legacy they're building together. But let's be real, if they don't tighten up their game and stop the calendar chaos, that legacy might start to feel a bit shaky. The show kicked off with a promo from the Moxley faction. Jon Moxley, Pac, Claudio Castagnoli, and Marina Shafir addressing Wheeler Yuta. They're putting the pressure on him to choose. Will he betray his mentor Bryan Danielson and join this villainous group, or will he stand by Danielson, the good guy? Moxley sets the tone by declaring, "I'm going to win the title, and there are going to be casualties." He ominously states to Danielson, "On October 12th, I will officially relieve you from your duty." It's a clear declaration of war. Marina Shafir chimes in, speaking what I believe is Russian, which feels a bit out of place and doesn't really add to the narrative. But the crux of the promo is to promote the upcoming Jon Moxley vs. Bryan Danielson match at Wrestle Dream, emphasizing that this is the major storyline to watch, the big money match for the AEW World Championship. The segment serves another purpose. It puts Wheeler Yuta in the spotlight, pressuring him to consider joining this villain faction. With Claudio, Pac, and Yuta holding the trio's championship, it would certainly be easier for him to align with them and maintain his title. But that would mean betraying Danielson, his mentor, which is clearly the morally wrong choice. Overall, this opening promo effectively establishes the primary focus of the show and sets the stage for the intense storyline ahead. It's a compelling setup that has fans invested in Yuta's dilemma and the impending clash between Moxley and Danielson. The Ricochet vs. Will Ospreay showdown. Before the match even kicks off, Don Callis slithers up to Will Ospreay, slick as hell, talking about last week's disaster where Kyle Fletcher and Ospreay flubbed their shot at the tag team titles. Callis is all about family, but Ospreay's got his eyes set on the prize, his match. "I gotta get in that ring, Don," he says, brushing off the old snake like he's nothing. Callis starts to talk about catching a flight, and one by one his crew starts to drift away, leaving only Konosuke Takeshita lurking like a shark in a kiddie pool, ready to strike. Then it's go time. Ricochet and Ospreay step into the ring, and it's like watching two lions ready to pounce. They lock up, trading grapples and submission attempts, flipping and dodging like a couple of acrobats in a death match. The crowd's losing their minds, throwing out woo. Ric Flair chants as the knife-edge chops echo through the arena. Ricochet launches himself off the barricade, hitting a Hurricane Rana that sends the fans into a frenzy. Every move is a work of art, a holy shit moment that gets the emotions pumping and the adrenaline flowing. You can feel it in your bones. This is a masterclass in high-octane wrestling. But just as I'm thinking this is going to be a classic, you can sense the tension, like they're holding back for something bigger, something that's brewing in the back of their minds. Ospreay hits an Oz cutter off the second rope onto the apron, and the split screen during the commercial break keeps the action alive. Thank you, wrestling gods. Meanwhile, Ricochet retaliates with his own Oz cutter, then goes for a 450 splash but misses. He recovers like a champ, slamming down a backslide bomb and a twisted piledriver that makes the audience gasp. But here's the kicker. Ospreay's got a style clash in mind, showcasing the kind of talent that's been shackled in the WWE for way too long. He hits another Oz cutter, attempts a hidden blade, and Ricochet fires back with a picture-perfect shooting star press. These guys are flipping, flying, and trading moves like they're in a goddamn video game. Then, just as the tension builds to a fever pitch, we get a double pinfall. The crowd goes from roaring cheers to booing like they just found out their favorite band canceled the tour. They want closure, a winner, but Tony Khan loves to keep the audience on their toes. This swerve? Genius. And then, like an entitled kid ruining their sibling's birthday party because the attention is not on them, Takeshita strikes. A running knee to Ospreay, followed by a raging fire on Ricochet. Don Callis' crew is firmly in the heel territory now, ruining what could have been an epic showdown. It's a classic wrestling move. Piss off the crowd, draw heat. You gotta have those bad guys to make the good guys shine, and it's clear we're setting up for something big. But let's be real here. This match feels almost anticlimactic. It's like a gourmet meal that ends too soon, leaving you hungry for more. This should have been the main course at a bigger event, maybe at All In 2025, where they can pack in 50,000 fans. You know the kind of spectacle that would make this match legendary. In the end, I walked away feeling like I just sampled a killer appetizer. You know what's coming next? The rematch is going to be off the fucking wall, surf and turf, steak and lobster, baby. This is just the beginning, and when these two meet again, it's going to be a firestorm that'll blow the roof off the joint. All Elite Wrestling is nailing it with the storytelling and character arcs, proving that when you blend compelling narratives with killer in-ring action, you've got magic. And I'm extremely proud for All Elite Wrestling, because this is the right call. Like I said in my fantasy booking, you don't have Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. You don't have The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. You don't have Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. All these epic matches for the first time on a regular television show. As Vince said in his documentary, take those legendary bouts and you put that in a legendary setting in front of a large-size crowd that does feel legendary. So it was very great self-control from All Elite Wrestling, and if they blew this match on the television show, it would have lost its luster. Next up, Big Bill's in the ring, and he's giving props to the Learning Tree faction, which, let's be real, sounds like a bunch of kids trying to start a treehouse club. He's also hyping up Chris Jericho, the guy who's apparently putting the whole operation on his back. The set design? Man, it's got these cardboard cutouts of trees that look like they fell right out of a kindergarten play. I half expected a kid with a glue stick to come out and fix the set. But Big Bill, he's got the mic, and people are saying he's really leveling up as a wrestler. He's a big dude, and he's got skills on the mic, so he shouldn't be stuck playing the sidekick. He needs to flex that power and stop acting like Jericho's backup dancer. Then Jericho grabs the mic, and it's classic Chris. He starts bragging about the new TV deal, telling everyone he makes the experts look like fools and that they should be thanking him. The crowd goes wild with "Thank you, Chris" chants, and you know he's eating that up. He mentions it's his 34th anniversary in wrestling. That's longer than most of the audience has been alive. Then he reminds us about last week when he took out Mark Briscoe in a no DQ tag match. Classic Jericho. Now he's setting his sights on the ROH title, challenging Briscoe to a match at Wrestle Dream in Tacoma. I think it's a solid move. Jericho as champion could set up some juicy matchups, like him against Dustin Rhodes for the title. And let's face it, Jericho knows how to make a title feel important. He doesn't just carry it around like it's a bag of groceries. He treats it like gold. Briscoe? He's got the charisma, but he's been acting like a backstage wallflower. This is a heavyweight title we're talking about. If he loses it, maybe it'll light a fire under his ass to start advocating for himself instead of lurking in the shadows. Jericho touches on Jay Briscoe, Mark's late brother, and Mark's response is fiery. You want to go there? I'll give you a Briscoe-style ass-whooping. That's what I'm talking about. It's going to be a hell of a match because Jericho can draw eyes to Ring of Honor, and Briscoe needs a storyline to give him some edge and more in-ring mic time. Then we cut to Darby Allin. This dude starts telling a wild story about getting bullied on a bus in Tacoma, and it escalates to a knife fight. Seriously, it's like a scene straight out of a teen drama. He talks about how that experience inspired him to keep fighting, especially after losing to Moxley last week, which cost him a shot at the heavyweight title against Bryan Danielson. Now it's Moxley versus Danielson at Wrestle Dream, and Darby's throwing out an open challenge. He could face anyone: Bobby Lashley, Shane McMahon, Adam Page, or even Powerhouse Hobbs, who's been lurking in the shadows. Darby's emotional promos hit hard, and I'm all in on this. Plus, Hook just retired the FTW title, so he's looking for a new challenge too. Speaking of Hook, he cuts a promo about his dad getting jumped in a parking lot, and he wants blood. That's some serious motivation right there. Could be Roderick Strong's time to shine if he's the one who gets the wrath. And then we get a segment with Prince Nana and MVP, where it's revealed that Shelton Benjamin has joined AEW, finally. This guy's been underrated for too long. He's got the athleticism and skills that WWE never let him show off. Now he gets a chance to prove he's not just some guy in the background. So yeah, there's a lot brewing in AEW, and it's looking good. Storylines are weaving together, and the potential for some epic matches is off the charts. I'm here for it. Before the main event at 9 o'clock, we had Juice Robinson going toe-to-toe with Adam Page. And let me tell you, the match didn't even start right away because these two were already brawling on the ramp. Seriously, it could have easily been a disqualification for not getting their asses in the ring on time. And honestly, I wish they had gone that route. AEW never has the guts to call it like it is. So, Juice whips out a belt and starts laying into Adam, a nod to that lumberjack match he had with Jeff Jarrett last week where Adam pretty much assaulted Juice. Eventually, Adam snatches the belt back and gives Juice a taste of his own medicine. It's like a fucking tennis match, but with more violence. After that, they spill into the arena, and I was glad to see it because AEW has this weird habit of having regular matches and then letting the wrestlers brawl outside the ring for more than 10 seconds without even flinching at the thought of disqualification. It's total bullshit. If you're having a standard match, any weapon use or leaving the ring should be an automatic DQ. But no, AEW has this dumb rule where referees can just wave the rules away like they're nothing. And then, of course, we get another split-screen commercial break. I mean, come on. Here I am trying to enjoy some wrestling, and they hit me with this tearjerker pornography St. Jude's commercial featuring kids battling cancer while their parents look like they're auditioning for a sad movie. It's like they're trying to prostitute donations with guilt trips. It's a damn distraction when you're trying to watch wrestling. WWE knows how to do it right, cut to a full commercial and leave the split screens for the amateurs. I will add that I do understand the importance of donations to hospitals and cancer research, but I'm not a fan of commercials that try to do emotional manipulation. Honestly, I got pulled out of the match looking at that sympathy porn until I saw Juice hit Adam with a cannonball while Page was against the guardrail. That guardrail went flying into the crowd like it was a fucking rocket. That was the only hardcore moment in the match. But let's be real, they should have had a last man standing match, because that would have really attracted a bigger television audience. Still, I appreciate that they kept it mostly in the ring and didn't break the damn 10 count. Adam Page ends up winning by delivering a nut shot when the referee isn't looking. Then he follows it up with the buckshot lariat. Classic heel move, right? Then things get spicy. Adam tries to hang Juice with a belt over the top rope, and out of nowhere, Switchblade Jay White saves Juice. Now this is where it gets interesting. Page and Jay White start brawling into the crowd, and Jay White spears him through a table that Page had set up earlier. Surprise, motherfucker. I'm also glad they reminded everyone that Jay White's been out since last year due to an injury, not just sitting at home collecting a paycheck like some lazy ass. AEW needs to make it clear when wrestlers are out for real reasons. And even though they didn't officially announce it as a match, you could see the writing on the wall for Page versus Jay White at WrestleDream. They've teased at least 8 matches for that pay-per-view, and I'm all for it. Adam Page is a serious, dark, and violent wrestler, akin to Randy Orton in his approach. He's the kind of guy who can deliver punishing blows and create an intense atmosphere in the ring. The issue arises when you pair him with someone like Juice Robinson, who has a more playful and comedic style, reminiscent of Mick Foley. Having Page face off against Robinson could be problematic. Page thrives in serious, hard-hitting matches, and when you throw in a guy who leans into humor and lightheartedness, it risks undermining Page's intensity. It's crucial for AEW to be mindful of the matches they book for Adam Page. For instance, you wouldn't put The Undertaker, another serious and imposing figure, in a match with Santino Marella or Doink the Clown. It just doesn't mesh. Similarly, pairing Page with a more comedic opponent like Robinson could dilute the impact of his character and the match itself. It's all about maintaining that necessary balance in the ring to ensure that Adam Page remains the formidable force he's meant to be. At 9 o'clock, we had Britt Baker taking on Serena Deeb. Honestly, I wasn't looking forward to this match. Both have been lackluster lately, especially Deeb, who's been on a losing streak, kind of like the female Brian Cage, always on the wrong end of the finish. So why should I care? During the match, they used a lot of split screen, which totally took me out of it. I found myself working on my to-do list instead. I'm gearing up for the WrestleDream pay-per-view next weekend, and I'm also on a mission to visit all 50 states. Wyoming is my last stop before WrestleDream. Britt Baker executed an avalanche air raid crash, which was the standout move of the night. It was clear she was going to win, especially since Pittsburgh is her hometown. They're trying to position her as a babyface, but honestly, she's much better as a heel right now. After the match, Serena attacked Britt from behind, but she was saved by Queen Aminata. It looks like they're setting up a potential match between Mariah May and either Queen Aminata or Britt Baker for the Women's Championship at World's End. However, later in the night, they did a segment with Willow Nightingale, so it's likely we'll see Nightingale versus Mariah May instead. They briefly announced next week's Dynamite, titled Tuesday, which sounds like a Battle of the Belts kind of show with all titles on the line, similar to WWF's Night of Champions. But even with the announcers mentioning it, the advertisement felt weak. No matches announced, no hype. This is why having back-to-back special shows can backfire. AEW tends to make things feel lackluster. You either go all out or don't stretch yourself too thin. The penultimate match featured Private Party against the Iron Savages. To my surprise, Private Party dominated quickly, turning it into a squash match. This was a much-needed statement to show they're legitimate contenders. I was thrilled to see them cut a post-match promo, expressing their ambition to dethrone the Young Bucks for the tag team titles. It's refreshing to see them with some motivation and character development instead of just throwing random matches together. This gives them a hero's journey feel, rather than making them appear like video game characters. I have to admit, their style does evoke memories of Matt and Jeff Hardy from the 90s. It's hard to ignore those vibes. The Young Bucks then came out and announced a match for Rampage, where they'll team with Jack Perry against Katsuyori Shibata and Private Party. I'm hoping this builds toward a Private Party versus Young Bucks showdown at WrestleDream. A strong performance could elevate Private Party astronomically, especially with a title win at World's End in December. I'll also credit Private Party for surprising me with that squash match win. The unpredictability was refreshing, and their follow-up promo added depth. AEW has felt predictable lately, so it's great to see surprises, unpredictability, and character development all rolled into one. It's what keeps wrestling compelling. The main event was a clash between Kazuchika Okada and Bryan Danielson in a title versus title match. The stakes were high. Danielson could become the Continental Champion, while Okada aimed to snag the AEW Heavyweight Championship. But the match was derailed by a truly dumb stipulation. The Continental Championship would only be on the line for the first 20 minutes. If the match went longer, even if Danielson pinned Okada, he wouldn't claim the title. This was beyond fucking stupid. Even MJF and other wrestlers were calling out how ridiculous this stipulation was. While I agree with MJF mentioning how dumbass it is, MJF, who's being paid handsomely, should keep his mouth shut about the company, especially when he's getting time off to film Happy Gilmore 2 with Adam Sandler. It's fucking disrespectful to criticize the company like that. And it's also a bad reflection of all elite wrestling that a wrestler can criticize a dumb stipulation publicly. If this was WWE, wrestlers would know not to speak publicly on that, or they would get a $10,000 plus fine if Vince was still running the company. If they didn't want Danielson to become a double champion, they could have kept it simple. Just have the Moxley faction interfere, beat up both guys, and turn it into a disqualification. Way less complicated. And seriously, if you're going to have a countdown stipulation, at least show a graphic of a timer. Also, wouldn't you want to have this stipulation for the AEW Heavyweight Championship because that's the most important title in the company, not the Continental Championship, which is one of the 10+ secondary titles that AEW has. Plus, there was no real story leading up to this match, aside from hyping Danielson facing a legendary Japanese wrestler. The 20-minute countdown completely took people out of the match. Once that timer hit 0, it deflated the audience. It's hard to stay invested when you know the Continental Championship isn't on the line anymore. Then, to add insult to injury, they had multiple long split-screen commercial breaks. I found myself drifting off because the split screen really kills the energy. In the match, Danielson hit a drop kick through the second rope, while Okada responded with a lateral press and a piledriver on the outside. Danielson followed up with a series of knife-edge chops and a jumping running knee. They extended the match for the anniversary show, which I don't mind, but going past 10:15 every week is aggravating, because when that happens all the time, it reflects very poor time management skills. And people have things to do, so it's disrespectful to hold up your audience, especially for people like me who work at night. Tonight went to 10:30, and with the long commercial breaks and the stupid stipulation, I was just waiting for it to end. Bryan Danielson ultimately won with a backslide when Okada was distracted by Claudio and Pac at ringside. But then Jon Moxley came out and beat down Danielson, claiming it's not about him. This has led some to speculate about a potential storyline involving Shane McMahon coming in for the title. Wheeler Yuta then showed up, swinging a large black hammer and chasing Moxley's faction away. I see potential for Wheeler to become a megastar in this feud if they play it right. At one point, Moxley's faction got the upper hand but ultimately retreated again. Wheeler grabbed the mic and declared he's not a child and can fight his own fights, setting up a match for Title Tuesday against Claudio and Pac. While I appreciate his bravado, it was fucking stupid to announce a tag team match for a show called Title Tuesday when no titles are on the line. Wouldn't you want a challenge for a title instead? Honestly, I'm assuming they'll pull some stupid New Japan-style stipulation where you have to beat the champion on Title Tuesday, only to face them again at WrestleDream. I'm not a fan of that since it feels like a repeat match. AEW seems to be struggling to get ratings right now, and they need to focus on making a good impression with their new TV deal, not this ridiculous shit. Tonight should have been about promoting both Title Tuesday and WrestleDream strongly, not this convoluted mess. I'm happy to see Wheeler improving, but they really need to get their act together. In wrapping this up, let's break down the positives and negatives of the anniversary show. Starting with the positives. The show moved at a brisk pace, which kept the energy up. I was particularly impressed that they announced 4 matches for WrestleDream ahead of time, breaking the pattern of throwing together last-minute matches with no build. AEW has clearly recognized and worked on this weakness from last year, and I respect that. It was awesome to see Shelton Benjamin debut, and Jay White returning from injury was a nice surprise. The match between Will Ospreay and Ricochet was something special. This should have been a WrestleMania-level bout. They left us wanting more, teasing that the next encounter will be even bigger and better. The interference from Konosuke Takeshita added layers to the story, making it feel anticlimactic but effective. That frustration only builds anticipation for the eventual rematch, and it does a great job of heating up the Don Callis family angle. I also appreciated Private Party stepping up with a promo about their desire to become tag team champions. They're hungry and driven, which is refreshing in a tag division that often falls into comedy bits. It's crucial for wrestlers to express motivations that resonate with the audience, and seeing them talk about their 5-year journey with a clear goal is a promising sign. Now on to the negatives. Tony Khan should have been front and center, celebrating the 5-year milestone and discussing the new TV rights deal. There was virtually no build-up to the matches, aside from Ospreay versus Ricochet, and Title Tuesday is looming with no hype whatsoever. Announcing a tag match with no titles on the line for a show called Title Tuesday? That's just dumb. They could have hyped it up way more, especially since it's on a different day and time. Poor advertising like this is likely to tank their ratings right before a pay-per-view. During the anniversary show, none of the wrestlers took a moment to reflect on what 5 years of AEW meant to them. Sure, Private Party mentioned the 5-year mark, but it felt more like a footnote than a celebration. They could have had Bryan Danielson, Jericho, or anyone express pride in being part of the journey. The lack of confetti, fanfare, or even heartfelt thank yous made it feel like just another show instead of a milestone celebration. And let's talk about that main event stipulation between Bryan Danielson and Kazuchika Okada. It was the most fucking stupid stipulation ever. You've got Okada's Continental title on the line for 20 minutes, but if Danielson pins him afterward, he doesn't get the title. Meanwhile, Okada can pin Danielson anytime during that window to become the AEW champion. What the hell? There's no build, and it feels like a cheap gimmick thrown in to get people talking. Why isn't the world title in the mix? It's a double standard that just screams lazy booking. So, to tie it all together, while there were significant positives, the negatives were equally glaring. I'd give this show a C. AEW has potential, but they really need to tighten up their storytelling and promotional strategies if they want to keep fans invested. And please stop with the fucking week-to-week special shows. However, having backstage segments and giving almost all your roster motivations, and definitely people who have not stepped up to the microphone before, a chance to be on the microphone and be loud and proud about their motivations, that's a step in the right direction.